So now we'll move into the next part of our agenda, which is hearing from our speakers, and which, if you don't know, is Dr. David Gill, who's a family practice physician, as well as Pamela Gronemeyer, organizer and leader with the Illinois Single Payer Coalition, and Sheilah Garland, with an organizer and leader with National Nurses United. And basically the way that we'll kind of move through this next portion of the conversation is I'll introduce each of them, give a little bit of bio on them, and then they'll present kind of their perspective. Once it's all wrapped up and everyone's had a chance to say their piece on our panel, then we'll open it up for audience questions and further engagement. Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, there we go. And I've got a significant glare here.
Can't see it, can you? That's
Not really.
There's the name.
All right. So Dr. David Gill, which many in this room I know is familiar with, grew up in the Chicagoland area, worked his way through college and medical school at the University of Illinois, working in restaurants and a laundromat. Dr. Gill has been a physician in family practice and in emergency medicine in Illinois since 1991. He's a longtime member of the Physicians for a National Health Program and has run for Congress several times and gave Davis quite a scare in 2012 where Davis just eked by a fraction of a percent. So with that, I'd like to hand the floor over to Dr. Gill. Let's give him a round of applause.
I want to thank Sonny for inviting me and Louis for being a part of this as well. When I talk about healthcare and healthcare financing in this country, I like to boil it down into a couple very important nutshells. And one of the things that I'd like to talk about is the dying that takes place here in America. Sometime since we came in this room at 6 o'clock, somebody here in this country died because of lack of health insurance or because of insufficient or the wrong kind of health insurance. And this is a very rare phenomenon worldwide. This doesn't go on in any of the other developed countries of the world, but here in America it goes on. It's happened once since we came in, and it'll happen again 15 minutes later, and 15 minutes after that, like clockwork. So we'll have 8 people dying, 8 loving families hurt and crushed because their family member died just because they don't have insurance or the right kind of insurance. And when you put all the numbers together, what it amounts to is the equivalent of the number of people that we lost on 9/11. That happens every month. We have a dozen 9/11s every year here in this country. It used to be that someone would die every 12 minutes pre-ACA. I'm not a big ACA fan. There's a couple good things there that we can talk about, but it improved it to where there's just somebody dying here in America every 15 minutes, which I see as a complete and utter moral failure here in our country. The other thing I'd like to talk about is $100,000 chunks. And I'd like you to think for a second about what you would do if I gave you $100,000 to spend on yourself today. And then what would you do if I also gave you $100,000 tomorrow? And the next day, and the next day? And what if I gave you $100,000 every day for pretty much forever? And the reason I ask about this is the other important element of our healthcare system are the health insurance companies and the people running them. And I speak frequently about my poster child for what's wrong with healthcare here in America. There's a company called United Healthcare. Some of you guys might have United Healthcare. Until a few years ago, it was run by a gentleman named William McGuire. And when he retired a few years ago, he received a parting bonus of $1.6 billion with a B, $1.6 billion. And the way they get their money is from you people that are members of United Healthcare. That's money that people are sending in for their premiums and paying for their co-pays and deductibles. And he got $1.6 billion, enough to spend $100,000 on himself each and every day for not forever, 40 to 45 years. What does he buy? What does he need $1.6 billion with while somebody's dying in this country every 15 minutes because they don't have the right health insurance? Those two facts alone, you hear those two facts, that's what American healthcare is, and you cannot be against Medicare for all. I learned long ago, I started residency more than 30 years ago, the things that I saw as a resident when I was younger and the things that I see as an attending physician on a regular basis, I still work in the ER on a nearly full-time basis. And even the things that I've seen as a family member of a sick individual have made it ever more clear to me that the need for single payer or Medicare for all is of paramount importance in this country. My own first wife, after she died some years ago, as we were planning her funeral, at one point in her illness she had had a life flight from here in Bloomington down to Barnes Jewish in St. Louis. And much to my surprise, a few months later while I was planning her funeral, I got a bill for $17,000 for that helicopter ride. And fortunately, I had the wherewithal and the knowledge base to fight back against that inappropriate billing and didn't have to just bow down before the insurance company. But that type of thing happens on a regular basis to people in this country. The things that I see, Georgine, you mentioned you might have died. People do die. I see people in diabetic comas who can't afford their insulin. I see people, I had a very sad case several years ago, a young woman in her 30s who had had chest pain a week earlier, and she got brought in cardiac arrest. We tried to resuscitate her and we were unable to, and she was a working woman who didn't have insurance. So many jobs don't have insurance, as you're all aware. And her husband told me that she'd had chest pains a week earlier and she had, of necessity, ignored them because she couldn't afford to address it, and so she was dead. I see it on a regular basis. Last year I had a gentleman who also has a job, has insurance, but it's not quite good enough insurance, like so many insurances in this country. Man in his 50s, works hard, full-time, bad health insurance. He had belly pain, ignored it for 2 or 3 days. It got worse and worse until he became extremely sick and showed up in my emergency department, septic, because his appendix had perforated and he had waited too long because he didn't feel that he could afford the $500 copay for an emergency department. It gets old. It wears on me. It's why I've tried to enter the political arena on several occasions. It's really clear to me that we have a two-tiered system in this country. You know, when I was a resident, initially I wondered why I was only seeing people that had no money or resources or people that were on public aid. And as time went on, it became clear to me that the doctors cherry pick. Still in the emergency room today, the bulk of my work is taking care of those who have no insurance or those who are on public aid. And I'll ask patients, did you call your primary? And they'll say, yeah, but they told me to go to the ER. And, you know, and I'm not here to vilify the physicians. Some of them, maybe, Sarah. But you know, if a doctor can make $100 for 10 minutes work, or he can make $15 for 10 minutes work, it's human nature that somebody's going to want $100. And that's why I think it's very important. I put one of those letters in the paper not too long ago. I think it's important to understand the difference between Medicare for all and real Medicare for all. And I'm not here, you know, whoever comes out of that primary, I'm all for, and I hope everybody here is the Democratic presidential primary. But Kamala Harris introduced her plan yesterday, and it gives private health insurance a great, they continue to be great big pigs feeding at the trough. And you need to not let them in so that everybody is in the Uncle Sam healthcare plan, because it works best when everybody's in and nobody's out. There was an old guy in Chicago, Dr. Quentin Young. He passed away a few years ago when he was 90-some. He was one of my mentors when it came to this stuff. And he would lead chants of everybody in, nobody out, because it works best then. You know, Medicare has flaws. I talk all the time that we need improved Medicare for all. Some other guy, some reactionary, had a letter in the paper not long ago saying Medicare is not good. I have to buy Medicare Advantage. I have to buy supplements. And it's because right now in Medicare, who do we have in it? We have the oldest, the sickest, the disabled, the people who need more health care. And that's why I thought the mandate was a good idea as part of the ACA. You need to have young, healthy people as part of the system as well to balance things out. And as I indicated in that letter, private health insurance, I don't know, I don't meet anybody that likes their private health insurance. And that's why it surprised me when they were asking at the initial Democratic presidential debates, you know, would you get rid of private health insurance? And people talking about those who like it, because I don't see those patients. Nobody's telling me about how they like it. Sonny had asked me to address resistance. There's lots and lots of resistance, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. There's a lot of money put into spreading lies and mythology, but we are winning. Over time, we're winning. When I was a young doctor, when I joined Physicians again for a national health program, I was part of a small minority of doctors. Now, almost 60% of doctors want to see Medicare for all. 70 to 75% of the general public wants to see it. And I think those that don't want to see it just don't understand what it is that we're talking about yet. There's still a lot of resistance at the political level. I remember when I ran for Congress in 2006, I went to Washington and talked with the head of the DCCC, Rahm Emanuel, who went on to fame as the mayor of Chicago. And he laughed at us. I was part of a group of 12 candidates running on a single-payer platform, and he laughed at us and shunned us. And of course, there was no party support for anybody taking the position that we were taking on health care. And Senator Durbin has impeded my success within the political arena for a long time. Ran somebody against me in a primary in 2012. I find it, I almost laugh now when they talk about Ms. Dirksen-Londrigan, that she was oh so close, so we got to get behind her again. When, you know, as you saw, I was 3 times closer than that, and we had a liberal independent that was on it. But no, after 2012, they wanted someone that would stand with their health insurance companies in Judge Callis.
Why?
Because they're owned by Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth take lots and lots of money from health insurance companies. So they are not for what we're here talking about tonight. And I think that's something that we need to educate voters on. I still believe the best strategy is electoral politics, but we need to tease out who's for real Medicare for all and who's not. I think Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are fully on board with what we're talking about here tonight. They don't take money from Aetna and Blue Cross Blue Shield. And so, be aware of who it is that you're getting behind. And again, I'm not here to bash the others. They're all infinitely better than the man in the White House right now. And I think, as has been alluded to, other business interests and smaller governmental entities would benefit tremendously. And they're starting to figure that out. Eventually, this country is going to stand up against this health insurance dragon that's been chewing us all up and spitting us out and denying care. And we were talking about the fact that, their job, I don't even vilify the health insurance companies. That's their job. That's their mandate, to maximize profit. It's not about providing care. They don't provide you with care. They want to suck as many dollars out and put as few dollars back in, because that's what they promise their shareholders they'll do. So it's shame on us for letting them continue on for so long. So I've probably gone on long enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we've got Pamela Gronemeyer with the Illinois Single Payer Coalition. Pam is also a member of the Physicians for a National Health Program member and a board member of Missourians for Single Payer, and leads Southern Illinois People for Progress. She believes that healthcare is a human right and provides healthcare insurance to our employees and their dependents with minimal out-of-pocket expense, and she is an activist in her community and in the healthcare arena. As the child of a late union laborer, she knows that our safety net is vital to the preservation of our democracy. Let's hear it from Pamela.
Yeah, I'm